regime that it could have on stability in the Sahel region. The Al-Qaeda affiliated group has intensified its operations in Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. There are 3 counties that have been already grappling the mounting violence and insecurity. These same conditions, despite promises of restoring order and military junta that have replaced civilian government in these countries, they appear unable to curb the growing jihadist threats. JNIM is now considered one of Africa's most dangerous groups, formed in 2017 in Mali as a coalition of 5 jihadist militant groups in recent years, and has expanded geographically and establishing new areas of operation. Kenyan police have blocked major roads leading to Nairobi and restricting vehicle traffic this morning as the country braces for protests to mark the anniversary of pro-democracy rallies. The protests, called the Saba Saba in Kiswahili, come after largely youth-led protests in June last year that initially focused on tax hikes but expanded to cover issues such as corruption, police brutality and unexplained disappearances of government critics. Joy Lehodi reports.
The government is committed to protecting life and property during protests, as stated by Interior Minister Kipchumba Murkomen. Unidentified people forced their way into the offices of the non-profit Kenya Human Rights Commission to stop a press conference ahead of today's protests. Most schools and at least one shopping mall remained closed. The death of Albert Ojwang in police custody in June gave fresh impetus to protests, with the government-funded Kenya National Commission on Human Rights reporting 19 deaths across the country during demonstrations last month.
Botswana Vaccine Institute is expected to ship the remaining 400,000 doses of foot and mouth disease shots to South Africa by the end of this month. South Africa purchased 900,000 doses of the FMD vaccine from Botswana, and the landlocked country has since delivered the initial 500,000 doses towards the tail end of last month. In addition to selling the vaccines to South Africa, PVI Chief Executive Officer Andrew Madeswi says that Botswana is offering South Africa's Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, with the necessary expertise.
The Botswana Vaccine Institute is committed to assist our country, and not only that, we are also pledging that support to our neighboring countries in managing and eradicating FMD. We would like to reiterate that our expertise and resources are at the disposal of the region, including South Africa, to safeguard the livestock industry, which is crucial to the livelihood of many across the African continent. We are looking at supplying the second consignment of 400,000 doses by the end of this particular month of July.
Lastly, indirect talks between Hamas and Israel will continue today on a potential ceasefire and the release of hostages from Gaza. The BBC's Lone Wells reports.
So far, there has been no significant breakthrough. Israel is under strict instructions from Benjamin Netanyahu, according to him, to agree a deal based on the conditions that Israel has already agreed to. So it doesn't sound at the moment like Israel is that open to budging the terms that they've already set out. The big question ahead of this meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Donald Trump will be whether or not President Trump can persuade Netanyahu to commit to ending the war, something which he has so far ruled out.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsinzi.
SABC News, the African perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour. So today marks day 3 of the ongoing Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament. But today the focus is on the defending champions South Africa, who begin their campaign as they face off with the Black Queens of Ghana. And the Proteas, meanwhile, are in a commanding position on day 2 of the second test against Zimbabwe, with Vian Mulder scoring a triple century. Details of these and other stories coming up at 12:30.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia.
Zinzi with our news update and Msibudi Makura with our sports headlines. It is 12:07 Central African time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, an OpenView channel 628 and on www.channelafrica.co.za as well as on the SABC Plus app available on the Apple and Google Play stores. And join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 4069126 #Africa Updates and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And today on #Africa Update Ask, today is World Chocolate Day. Now, what chocolates are your favorite and what about it makes it that? And let us know your thoughts and how you feel about chocolate. And, it's everyone, I guess chocolate is everyone's favorite. It is my favorite. And what makes it that about it? Chocolate. Sweetness, I guess. Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. It is 12:09 Central African time. It's #Africa Update Ask.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Our political parties in South Africa are calling for an urgent debate on the deepening crisis within the South African Police Service and the broader criminal justice system. It follows explosive allegations by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi claimed that Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, is in regular contact with individuals linked to criminal activities. He has also discussed senior police officials of involvement in corruption. Tracy Bumgard filed this report.
Action SA and the Democratic Alliance have called for urgent debates, adding that these allegations poses a threat to national security. Darylene James, Action SA Member of Parliament, says they will use every tool available to fight corruption in the country.
Action SA demands urgent parliamentary intervention to protect national security. The Commissioner's unprecedented claims pointing to widespread criminal infiltration and corruption at the highest levels of SAPS, including the Minister of Police, raises grave concerns about the integrity and functionality of the country's law enforcement leadership and, more critically, the troubling national security threats that this poses.
Meanwhile, Razum Zanzi says President Cyril Ramaphosa cannot remain silent. Mahashule Gana is the party's National Assembly caucus whip and member of the Portfolio Committee on Police.
These allegations cannot be left to fester. It is therefore incumbent on President Cyril Ramaphosa and the National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masimula, to act and brief the nation on their knowledge of the allegations and the actions that will be taken. Moreover, the South African people want one thing: to feel safe. Therefore, the unnecessary fights within the police must stop, and that focus must be directed at keeping South Africans safe. A war within SAPS and between different power structures shreds away at the constitutional imperative to keep South Africans safe and leaves the country at the mercy of criminals.
Tebogo Mashalompani, the national leader of Forum for South Africa, says it is about time that the police address the level of crime in the country.
For years, we have had ministers after minister, but the level of crime, new types of crimes, keep rising. It is without doubt that there are high-ranking officials who work against progress in fighting crime. As a result, the numbers keep rising. South Africa has, in the recent past, experienced a rise in crime, ranging from tank mafias to extortion. And adding to all this is the increase of drug mafias. In the history of the new dispensation, there has never been a minister or national commissioner who directly confronted the issue of drug mafias. General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has proven to be very different from all the previous national commissioners and ministers in police because he confronts issues through action, not speeches. and he is honest about the outcome he anticipates to see. Forum for South Africa, therefore, calls on President Cyril Ramaphosa to consider replacing the National Commissioner with General Mkhwanazi if the president is serious about fighting crime on a bigger scale.
The Good Party has called for an immediate investigation into the allegations. Brett Heron says if allegations against both the Police Minister Senzo Mchunu and the Office of National Deputy Commissioner Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya are true, it amounts to political interference and sabotage.
The explosive allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Police Commissioner demand immediate and independent investigation by senior officials within the SAPS and the National Prosecuting Authority, and the Commissioner must be protected as a whistleblower. South Africans already have little confidence in the police and growing scepticism towards prosecutors and the courts. Direct and damning allegations of political interference made publicly by a senior police official confirm that this lack of trust is not irrational. The stability of our country is at stake, and the President must act decisively and without delay to restore confidence in our justice system. His response must be beyond reproach and meet the highest standard of public legitimacy and credibility.
Minister of Police Senzo Mchunu says he was made aware of the allegations made by Mkhwanazi. He says he will not allow his integrity or that of the police ministry and SAPS to be undermined without evidence or due process. Mchunu says they will review the allegations and consider appropriate action.
Well, we have become aware of what General Mkhwanazi said we have been saying. I didn't have time to look at TV, but there are those statements that he has made. We will, in good time, apply our mind to those kind of statements.
Senzo Mchunu added that he remains committed to upholding the rule of law while ensuring accountability within the country's police service. The country's President Cyril Ramaphosa says the matter is receiving the highest priority, calling on all parties to exercise discipline and restraint. Ramaphosa is currently at the BRICS Leadership Summit taking place in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. The Office of the Presidency says Ramaphosa will outline the actions to be taken on this matter when he returns from the summit. For Channel Africa, I am Tracy Bumgard.
We did reach out to the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Our social media is saying that Mkhwanazi has filed legal charges against the Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu, but this is still to be verified. Now, to discuss this further, we are joined on the line by Integrated Risk Solutions CEO and founder, Chad Thomas. Chad, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon to you and the listeners.
Chad, just talk to us about what came to your mind, your first thoughts when you saw Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi maybe on your television screen or social media, and what came out of his mouth with regards to the allegations against the minister and senior members of the police.
I watched it live, and I can tell you it was with a sense of shock and disbelief that this was happening. It's unheard of, especially a briefing which we thought was going to be operational taking place at 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I think that there was a level of satisfaction on my part that there's going to be a reckoning now in respect of the leadership of the South African Police Services, which has been factionalized and fractured for over 2 decades now. And I think this reckoning is as a result of Mkhwanazi's outing of these concerns. And whether these concerns are from a position of frustration or genuine concern that the rule of law is being subverted by bad actors is still to be seen. And I think what a lot of people are misunderstanding and perhaps upset about is that they say he didn't follow due process or protocol. There should have been another way for him to do it. And I don't think they're strictly correct in saying that. Yes, there are protocols to follow, but when meetings take place behind closed doors, we don't know what happens in those meetings. He's now made this very public, which means that we as the citizens of this land are going to get the answers that are needed, because it's we, the citizens of this land, that battle against crime. And we've got some of the most horrific crime statistics in the world.
Now, given that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi's allegations of corruption within the police service, what impact do you believe this could have on public trust in the South African police service, and how might it affect their effectiveness in combating crime? Because clearly now we've had the spotlight on the police and some challenges here and there, people complaining about police not doing their work correctly or not doing their work at all. Now this.
The Institute of Security Studies' recent survey among South Africans found that a 27% figure of the population actually had faith in the South African police services. That is so discouraging. It makes us all despondent. 27% of our population has faith in the South African police service. This can go one of two ways. It can boost the public confidence that it's now been outed, because we've always heard the rumors, we've always heard the whispers, we've always spoken about corrupt actors compromising high-ranking police officers. Or, of course, it can have the short-term effect of lowering the public's perception of the police in a good way. But it's a very necessary evil that's happened. He's opened up dialogue. He's created a situation where people have to speak about this, action must be taken, and the president needs to address this as a matter of concern. One must remember that despite our country having a functioning judiciary, a functioning democracy, fiercely independent Chapter 9 institutions, we still are beleaguered by some of the worst crimes in the world. And this is down to issues that form part of the criminal justice system. And if there's a deficit of leadership at the very top, it's going to impact on levels of crime in this country. And we need to address that because our citizens are getting hurt. We've added F to GBV, which is absolutely shocking that we've had to add femicide to GBV. And it just shows that there has been this deficit of leadership and we need to address it.
Now, the response from the police minister was dismissive in terms of the allegations. He said they were baseless. Do you think there's merit to Mkhwanazi's claims, or are they potentially driven by internal power struggles within the South African police service?
There's definitely power struggles. It's very factionalized and it's very fractured, as I mentioned at the outset of the insert. So it's concerning that these allegations are being voiced, and they have to be investigated and interrogated thoroughly. The general didn't just make allegations. He backed up some of what he said with what we could term empirical evidence to suggest that there's a prima facie case. He spoke about WhatsApps. He spoke about transfers. He spoke about downloading other suspects' phones and finding messages between them and people that are within very powerful positions in the state. So I don't think that we can dismiss these allegations. I think these allegations have to be investigated and interrogated thoroughly. And we need to ensure that the correct lifestyle audits are done on everybody that's involved. And we have to look at who's been compromised. We have to look at a way forward. Because for over 2 decades now, our police force has been rudderless. We haven't had a commissioner work out their full term. We haven't had a commissioner that hasn't been linked to some form of controversy. And this is unacceptable.
Now, political parties are calling for an urgent parliamentary debate. In your opinion, do you think such a debate would serve to clarify the situation, or will it probably further politicize the issue? What needs to happen now?
It's already politicized. We need a starting point. I think the Police Oversight Committee in respect of policing needs to urgently convene. There has to be a debate. But more importantly, the president has to set up a task team. We can't have another commission of inquiry that's going to cost us R1 billion and is going to take years to resolve. We need an urgent judge appointed to inquire as to what has transpired. We need the input from IPID, from the Office of the DPCI Judge, from the Inspector General of Intelligence, as well as the Parliamentary Oversight Committee on Police. And we need to see action taken from the minute the president lands on our soil.
Now, if Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi's allegations are true, what steps do you think should be taken to address the corruption within the police service and install its integrity?
Well, we're not going to know whether they are correct or not until they've been tested in court. Right now, it's a prima facie allegation. Prima facie is at first glance, and it needs to be correctly interrogated and tested. But what the president would need to do is place anybody that's been identified as perhaps compromised on precautionary suspension so that the processes can take place without any interference.
And very quickly, just in wrapping up, Chad, what's more than likely to happen to Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi now, especially with the fact that he did not use the due processes in terms of the correct channels within the police service to deal with this crisis that he's brought to the public?
He has a massive target on his back. Time will tell whether he did the right thing. I believe he did, because it's a dialogue we've needed for a very long time, and we need to out the bad apples that exist within our policing structures. But I think he is in for a torrid time, and he's going to be targeted by spinners and bad actors acting for the other bad actors. And I do think he's got the strength and fortitude to see this through. And let's just hope that this is the catalyst we've been looking for that brings about the changes within the police leadership.
Chad, thank you for your time on Africa Update.
Thank you.
That's Integrated Risk Solutions CEO and founder Chad Thomas joining us on the line.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 24 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our police in Kenya have blocked major roads leading to Nairobi and heavily restricted vehicle traffic as the country braces for protests to mark the anniversary of pro-democracy rallies today. Our activists rally each year on July the 7th to mark the date in 1990 when opponents of then-President Daniel Arap Moi launched a bid to transform the country into a multi-party democracy. The protest is called Sabasaba 77 in Kiswahili because of the date. Now, meanwhile, an armed gang reportedly attacked the headquarters of the Kenyan Human Rights Commission in Sunda as it hosted a press conference calling for an end to state violence. And for more on the latest, we are joined on the line by our correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kiari. Alex, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Yeah, good afternoon, and welcome again. As you said, clearly what is coming out is that it is actually the government of Kenya that is protesting because it is the one that is blocking the roads, turning away people, and actually disrupting operations that are supposed to be as it was announced yesterday. So this is a very different kind of Sabasaba protest, as you just rightfully put it, because the people are not protesting. It is the state that is actually engaged in these public activities of disruption.
Now, tell us about the protest action. Is generally every year it's quite peaceful and there are no incidents. Talk to us about this year. You're saying that it's totally different because of the way government is responding to, I guess, the word protest and seeing people marching in the streets.
Actually, this year's Sabasaba anniversary is a bit different, as you said, because it's bringing together people of three different generations, all pushing for the same issues in very different ways. The Sabasaba protests that were done in 1990 were, in a way, a violation of the then constitution that banned multi-party, or rather more political parties in the country, because by then the country was under one party called KANU. But now the advocates for the same were pushing for the introduction of multi-party democracy, which was realized 2 years after the initial protest. And this time round, the young generation, which we call the Gen Zs, who have now partnered with the other generations, they call them Gen Zote, which means all generations, are pushing for an end to violations relating to human rights, and also they are also pushing for the right to be allowed to protest as it is allowed in the Constitution of Kenya. So basically the same things, same issues, but now different faces, but which are merging at the same place, which is now advocating for respect to the law of the land and also respect to human life and also end of police brutality, which also were part of the issues that pushed the then proponents of democracy to go to the streets in 1990. It has
Now,
been
Alex,
a bit more...
an armed gang attacked the headquarters of the Kenyan Human Rights Commission on Sunday as the commission was hosting a press conference calling for an end to state violence and, other atrocities. Is the gang known, firstly? And, talk to us about the injuries, if any, and what exactly unfolded yesterday.
Actually, that event was called by the Kenya Human Rights Commission. It was actually being pushed or fronted by women whose children had been killed or maimed during the last protest that happened, especially between June 2024 and also June 2025. And they were just there to call on the government to end these police killings. But as the event got underway, around 20 or 30 young people raided the place and actually injured so many people there, including journalists. I recall one of our reporters here lost a phone, and also we also lost a microphone over there. And that aside, they also threatened and said that that they had been they were just effecting orders from above, which is actually an euphemism of telling us that someone big somewhere ordered them to do whatever they were doing. So far, we have gotten in touch with the commission, and they have given us the faces of the people who were involved in this thing, which were captured on the CCTV cameras. And from our investigations here, it seems that they came from an informal settlement outside Nairobi called Kawangware, which of course is controlled by some politicians. And we are just trying to confirm if the names we have are actually linked to the group. But
Alex, very quickly, just in wrapping up, what's the feeling with regards to President William Ruto and the economic stagnation and corruption in the country? Very briefly.
I think I'll just put it in 3 words: frustrations, anger, and hatred towards the presidency.
Alex, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you.
As a correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kiari joining us on the line. It is 12:30 Central African Time, and our news headlines up next with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Kenyan police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse protesters in the capital Nairobi today as they marked the 35th anniversary of pro-democracy rallies. A centre supported by USAID and Save the Children facility in Somalia has called for urgent supplies of vaccinations to prevent the widespread of polio and the whooping cough amongst children. An Australian inquest has ruled that a police officer who shot and killed an Indigenous teenager while trying to arrest him was racist. Channel Africa News, I'm Monele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Well, thank you, Onele, for those headlines. And we say good afternoon to Msubudi Makura with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good morning from good afternoon from the sports desk. We'll start with this story. So the reigning African champions, South Africa, will kick off their title defence against the West African giants, Ghana, at the Hunar Stadium in Uja later on tonight. So Banyana finding themselves in a very unique position where all eyes will be on them. And for the first time in their history, every team at this prestigious competition is aiming to knock them out from their position. So only 4 Ghanaian players have been been at the World Cup before, at the WAFCON competition rather, before. They have the experience at the continental level, including veteran Portia Bokea, the most capped female player who's hoping to make it 105 caps when they meet up with South Africa later on tonight. So kickoff for this game is at 6 p.m. Central African time. It's the opening match of Group C at the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament. Meanwhile, the second Group C fixture will get underway with the 2018 semi-finalist Mali taking on the East African side Tanzania at 9 p.m. Central African time tonight. Now, the two teams faced off back in 2010 when Tanzania played at their first ever WAFCON tournament. West Africans emerging as victors following a 3-2 win in a closely contested second Group A tie. So a lot, though, has changed since 2010. Mali missed the next two editions before returning to the WAFCON tournament back in 2016, and they did not make it past the group stages. Now, Les Eagles then went on to reach the semi-finals 2 years ago in Ghana when they eventually finished in fourth position, which was their highest finish in the history of the continental competition. For Tanzania, this is their first return to the continent's biggest showpiece since 2010. The match will be played at the Stade Municipal de Bagan. Just a reminder that kickoff is at 9 p.m. Central African time tonight. Well, on to this now. Liberian football legend James Deba, who plied his trade in the native country of Liberia in West Africa, neighbor of Cameroon as well as France in Europe. So Deba now serves in the Liberian Football Association as the head of technical scheme. Speaking to Channel Africa Sport, the Monrovia-born former forward says football in Liberia is like a religion.
You know, in Liberia, Liberians, I would say they are soccer crazy. We love the game of football. I mean, it's like a religion. Every kid in Monroe wants to be a soccer player.
By the way, the newly appointed head of technical scheme of the Liberian Football Federation explains his current role and what it will entail going forward.
All the transition has been difficult. I would say difficult in the sense because I miss the game. To be factual, I miss the game. But when I retire, when I venture into coaching, I coached the national team for 3 years. And after coaching, what I have now, I'm the head of the technical development scheme, which is scouting the younger generation of players. I've been working basically with the under 12, the under 14, under 15. I'm the head of that department in the Liberia Football Association.
And finally, in basketball news, NBA star Kevin Durant has joined the Houston Rockets from the Phoenix Suns in a record-breaking trade deal involving 7 teams. So the move was first announced just last month, but was then confirmed on Sunday when the league's new year officially started. So the Atlanta Hawks, the Brooklyn Nets, the Golden State Warriors, the Minnesota Timberwolves, as well as the Los Angeles Lakers are also involved in the deal, which involves 13 players and several future draft picks being exchanged. The previous record for the largest trade in NBA history was 6 teams, set last summer when Klay Thompson joined the Dallas Mavericks. Now, Durant was named the 2014 Most Valuable Player and won 2 NBA titles with the Golden State Warriors and is a 15-time All-Star player. He also won 4 Olympic golds with the USA basketball team. And that's a wrap from the Sports Desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, simply send us an email. That's to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibu Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa at Play with NATO and ETO chairman.
The Confederation of African Athletics, CAA President Mr. Hamad Kalkaba Malboum, talk to us about the state of athletics in Africa as it stands and what picture are you looking at 5 years later?
Yeah, athletics in Africa is strong. We are able to organize our major events in time. Like this year, we will have the under 20 and under 18 African Championship in Nigeria. Next year, we will have the senior Stadium in Ghana. And 2027, we will go back to Algeria to organize the under 18 and under 20. And then 2028, we will have the senior championship in Gaborone in Botswana. Well, by this program, we can increase our performance. And at the same time, we are considering the fact that within the British Federation, they are identifying young talent every year within their national program, within the scholarship championship. And so the athletics in Africa is in good standard.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Well, thank you to Msabudi Makura with our sports update. It is 12:37 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. So good afternoon to Chanduko Lekeke with our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and good afternoon. The legal, psychological, and employment implications of over-indebtedness cannot be ignored. That's according to Associate in Employment Law at Cliff Deckerhoff Mayor in South Africa, Malisela Litwaba. Speaking to SABC News, Litwaba explains how excessive debt has been linked to deteriorating mental health, impaired decision-making, and diminished functional capacity. Litwaba explains.
Employees with changing times, rising inflation, and the demand for more wants tend to over-indebt themselves or become financially overstretched, and as a result, when they are unable to meet their financial commitments, it has a knock-on effect on their ability to perform at work, mainly because they are stressed out in that they cannot meet their financial obligations.
The Southern African Transport Conference gets underway at the CSIR International Convention Centre in Pretoria, South Africa today. This as the region grapples with a range of transport and mobility challenges that directly impact economic growth, urban development and citizen mobility. Dr. Megan Brewer is the Southern African Transport Conference Organising Committee member.
It's an annual conference and it brings together a number of transportation professionals, people from academia, people from industry, from government, from a number of Southern African countries across the SADC region. And it's to share our latest ideas, ways of doing things, best practices, and really just to advance the transportation industry.
Still in Southern Africa, Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera has described Botswana's President Duma Boko as a visionary who's focused on economic development and good governance. Chakwera said this following the signing of agreements between the two countries in Malawi's capital, Lilongwe. Malawi and Botswana have agreed to collaborate in areas of trade, mining, agriculture and youth empowerment aligned with Malawi's agriculture, tourism and mining strategy to revive its struggling economy. They've also agreed to open embassies following talks between their foreign affairs ministers. George Mango reports.
Chakwera described President Boko, who served as the guest of honor at the event, as a visionary, democrat and pan-Africanist leader who aligns with Malawi's values of democracy, good governance and development. He lauded Botswana's progress under Boko's leadership, especially the launch of the country's first satellite into space within 6 months of his presidency. Chakwera then asked Boko to collaborate on Malawi's strategy of boosting productivity in agriculture, tourism and mining, while advancing manufacturing and value addition.
A Chinese customs statement reveals that China has approved the import of soybean meal from Ethiopia as part of efforts to broaden its protein sources amid a trade war between Beijing and Washington. The statement says effective from the 3rd of July, Ethiopian soy meal that meets China's phytosanitary standards and is free of pests will be allowed into the country. The approval follows Chinese feed makers securing the first soy meal shipment from Argentina since imports were approved in 2019, an effort to mitigate potential disruptions from the US-China trade war. Oil pads losses as a tight physical oil market offset the impact of OPEC Plus hiking oil output more than expected in August, as well as concern about the potential impact of U.S. tariffs on economic growth and oil demand. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and their allies, a group known as OPEC Plus, agreed on Saturday to raise production by 548,000 barrels per day in August, more than 411,000 barrels per day hikes they made for the earlier 3 months. The OPEC Plus decision will bring nearly 80% of the 2.2 million barrels per day voluntary cuts from 8 OPEC producers back into the market. Let's have a look at indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira, 527 in Botswana, 13 pula 10. Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling, 545. Zambia, 24 kwacha 18. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5.42. Russia, 78 ruble 69. India, 84 rupee 98. China, 71.16. South Africa, 17 rand 56 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,310, platinum at $1,356 per ounce, the price of Brent crude oil at $68.69 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Thank you to Chandu Golegege with our business update. It is 12:43 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today on hashtag Africa Update Ask, we try and find out from you what your views are with regards to World Chocolate Day and all things chocolate. What chocolates are your favorite, and what about it makes it that? Share your thoughts and your views and let us know how you feel about chocolate. And hey, even if you don't like chocolate, I think the majority does love chocolate. Send us your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 that's 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And this is just part of a question with it being World Chocolate Day today, celebrated across the globe. Hashtag Africa Update Us.
No matter where you are, Channel Africa is always with you.
Now, South Africa's Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, has officially received an investigation report on the findings of the inquiry conducted by Section 59 investigation panel into allegations of racial discrimination by medical schemes against black healthcare providers in the country. In May 2019, that's 2019, members of the National Healthcare Professionals Association and the Solutionist Thinkers made public allegations that they were being discriminated against by medical schemes and administrators, and their claims were being withheld based on their race and ethnicity. Joining us on the line is Dr. Thandi Mabeba, chairperson of the Council for Medical Schemes, to unpack this. Now, Dr. Mabeba, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon to you, Lulu, and the viewers.
Now, what role did the Council for Medical Schemes play in initiating and supporting the Section 59 investigation?
Thank you so much, Lulu, once more, and greetings to the listeners. The Section 59 was commissioned in 2019. And this followed a directive from the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, who directed the Council for Medical Schemes to commission an inquiry into the allegations that were brought by various stakeholders including the NHCPA and the solution thinkers. The Council for Medical Schemes then established a steering committee to interrogate the allegations and to engage in the way forward. This steering committee involved a variety of stakeholders from the industry, and that included the representatives from the healthcare providers, from the medical schemes. So the role of the Council for Medical Scheme at that time, from the outset, was then to appoint the Section 59 panel, which was led by Advocate Mogaitori, Senior Counsel, and supported by Advocate Adil Hassan, Advocate Kerry Williams, and we then had the Secretariat, which were the lawyers from Lawton's Africa. So the role of the Council for Medical Scheme was first to execute the mandate that came from the executive authority, the minister, to have an inquiry into the allegations and to facilitate the process up to the end, where the report is handed to the minister.
Now, what are the key findings of the investigation regarding racial discrimination by medical schemes?
You would remember, Lulu, that the Section 59 panel released an interim report in 2020, and subsequent to that, there were further calls for further submission by the public, and that happened in 2021, and it also happened in 2023. What has happened is that one looks at the interim report, and we have realized, as the presented report this morning by the chairperson of the panel, is that the findings that were identified in the interim report are not far from the findings of the final report. But they talk to, in the main, the issue of procedural fairness, that the allegations of procedural unfairness emanating from these audit processes in the private sector are found to be an issue in the findings of the report. The second critical issue was the issue of discrimination on the basis of race. So those are the two issues: the discrimination on the basis of race and the issue of procedural fairness that has been highlighted in today's handover.
Now, what action will CMS take against medical schemes or administrators found to have discriminated against black healthcare providers? And also, has there been any reaction when it comes to the medical aid schemes, for instance?
Lulu, there hasn't been any reaction from the medical schemes. I must also say to you that as the chairperson of the council, I have not seen the report. We have not studied the report. And as a result, it is going to be very difficult for me to give an answer as to what steps will council do subsequent to the handover report this morning. We did so to maintain the integrity of the report, as we had learned with the interim report that there were so many leakages that happened with the report, and it compromised the report at that time.
And how will the CMS ensure these discriminatory practices do not continue in the future?
Thank you so much, Lulu, once more. You would also remember that the Council for Medical Scheme is a creature of statute, meaning that it exists as a result of the Medical Schemes Act. So in terms of how the CMS will ensure these discriminatory practices do not continue in the future, This will be guided by the legislation that created CMS. We are then going to be guided by the minister, who is the custodian of the legislation and the regulations in particular, as to what reforms could be incorporated, particularly in the current Medical Schemes Act. We are still awaiting the Medical Scheme Amendment Bill that was submitted 2 years ago to be approved by Parliament, but we are going to be guided by Executive Authority, the Minister Aaron Motsoaledi.
And what message does CMS have for affected healthcare providers and the broader public following the release of this report?
The message that one can send out there is that we are grateful first as Council that finally the report was released. It was a very strategic effort from Council, particularly the current sitting Council, to ensure that this report is released. So to the public out there, one is thankful to the leadership of the current sitting Council. That is the first thing. The second thing is that to the affected stakeholders, both the service providers and the scheme, I will mention the service providers first. One would encourage the service providers to first observe the ethical guidelines as provided by their authorities. For instance, the HPCSA, we encourage healthcare providers to practice ethically, and we also encourage healthcare providers to voice their concerns, if there are any concerns, to the relevant bodies relating to the issues that have been identified by the Section 59 report. We are also excited that there are concerns have been identified, and we believe that justice has been made in this regard, and that this will bring a closure to the chapter that relates to the use of Section 59 in many respects. And to the schemes, we also understand the issues that surround the fraud, waste, and abuse of claims, which is also a reality that is facing the industry, particularly the schemes. And we say, let us work together in coming up with ways of curbing the fraud, waste, and abuse in terms of the issues surrounding the beneficiaries and the members of the schemes. You'll remember, Lulu, that one of the mandates of the Council for Medical Schemes is to protect the interest of the beneficiaries and the members of the medical schemes. So working together with multiple stakeholders, we will be in a position to come with a better solution. The Section 59 panel recommended that a tribunal that will see into these issues of fraud, waste, and abuse need to be considered for establishment to address the issues that have been out there in the public.
Dr. Mabeba, we have run out of time and are going to have to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so kindly, Lulu, and a good afternoon.
Thank you, and to you too. As Dr. Thandi Mabeba, the chairperson of the Council for Medical Schemes, joining us on the line.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix. Bana Boy huyo anajulikana kama Damini Ebunoluwa Ogolo, maarufu kama Bana Boy. Alizaliwa Julai 2 mwaka 1991. Ni mwimbaji na mwandishi wa nyimbo kutoka nchini Nigeria. Alipata umaarufu mnamo mwaka 2012 baada ya kutoa wimbo wake wa kwanza kabisa ambao ulijulikana kwa jina la Like to Party kutoka ndani ya studio Live 2013. Mnamo mnamo mwaka wa 2017 Burna Boy alisaini na bendi Habit Atlantic Records huko Marekani na One Music Group. Albamu yake ya tatu ya studio ya nje 2018 iliweka alama ya kwanza ya lebo yake. Mnamo mwaka 2019 alishinda sheria ya kimataifa ya bora kabisa kwenye tuzo za BET za 2019. Alitangazwa pia kama msanii wa Apple Music's Up Next.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, it is a happy Monday, and we say good afternoon to Tebogo Kuleni of the Upside team. Good afternoon. Hello, happy Monday. How's the weekend?
Happy Chocolate Day,
Happy
apparently.
Chocolate Day. Yes, I was coming to that. Yes, happy Chocolate Day.
Why do we celebrate Chocolate Day?
Because I guess it makes everyone feel good, you know?
You know, now we're coming up with all kinds. We're going to have a Happy Bold People Day at some point. Every single, whatever you can name, there's a day to celebrate. There's a Happy Dog Day
No, but
also.
chocolate is chocolate. Chocolate makes everyone who eats it feel happy. I feel happy when I have chocolate.
Did you bring chocolate?
I always have chocolate.
Okay,
all right, what's coming up today?
I'll get some from you later. So we're going to be having a conversation about neurodivergency, neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
It's a term used to describe individuals whose brain functions differently from what's considered typical. All right, we're talking about people who have autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dyslexia. They're all put under this umbrella we now call divergent or neurodivergent.
Okay.
And we'll be talking about the definition of it. What is it, and how can we then start creating spaces to accommodate people with neurodivergency in the workspaces, at homes, and also in the schools. Hopefully we'll touch on that with different learning abilities or learning needs. How can they be catered for in the classrooms as well? So that's our first conversation we'll be having this afternoon. And then we'll be spotlighting on arts and innovation with Beth Aronser, the CEO of, shall we call it, BASAS. I will get you the name of BASAS full credentials. But we're talking about innovation in property spaces, and we want to know what are the latest trends. I know Decorex is coming up soon in Johannesburg, and we can't wait to see what people are cooking up. And then later on, we are profiling a wonderful personality, or not even a personality. Her name is, let me get her name quickly. You know what?
Yeah.
You stay tuned
to hear all
so
of
you
that.
can hear all about
Exactly.
our conversation. That's all coming up on the Upside this afternoon. And if you have a neurodivergent child or under that bracket, please stay in and tune in on this conversation.
Definitely something interesting here on that topic. It's very important. Well, it is that time of the day where we say goodbye and the Upside comes in at the top of the hour. From myself, Lulu Gaboo, and the Africa Update team, it's been a great Monday. Thank you to our producer, Tracy Bumgard, our technical operator, Nanda Koza, and social media, Elaine Bengani. Continue with us on our social media platforms, and let's do this again tomorrow. Happy Chocolate Day. Bye-bye.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Looking at your top stories this hour, Kenyan police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse protesters in the capital Nairobi earlier today as they mark the 35th anniversary of pro-democracy rallies. Activists rally every year on July 7th to mark the date in 1990 when opponents of then-President Daniel Arap Moi launched a bid to transform the country into a multi-party democracy. The protest is called Saba Saba 77 in Kiswahili because of the date. Channel Africa correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kiari, explains.
The Saba protests that were done in 1990 were, in a way, a violation of the then constitution that banned more political parties in the country. But now the advocates for the same were pushing for the introduction of multi-party democracy, which was realized 2 years after the initial protest. And this time round, the young generation, which we call the Gen Zs, who have now partnered with the other generations, they call them Gen Zote, which means all generations, are pushing for an end to violations relating to human rights, and also they are also pushing for the right to be allowed to protest as it is allowed in the Constitution of Kenya.
Somalia's vaccination rates remain low and malnutrition is widespread, highlighting the critical importance of vaccination and access to quality medicine for children. As a call for increased vaccination and access to quality medicine, as missed vaccinations can lead to malnutrition and death. A center supported by USAID and Save the Children facility receives an average of over 60 people daily, many seeking vaccination. If vaccination runs short, diseases like whooping cough and polio will spread. Aid cards are worsening the crisis, as many communities in Somalia are vulnerable due to years of drought and loss of livelihoods and livestock. The Section 59 investigation panel into allegations of racial discrimination by medical schemes against black health care providers in South Africa has concluded that the procedure implemented by the schemes violates the rights of procedural fairness of some individual practitioners. This was revealed by the panel during a media briefing in Pretoria today. The panel was set up in 2019 following allegations by black healthcare providers that they were being discriminated against by medical schemes and administrators, and their claims were being withheld based on their race and ethnicity. The chairperson of the panel, Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi, explains.
We have found that the current procedures that